Hi there, Charley Egan here of the Egan Group at Hall & Chambers Real Estate. And this is episode number 3 of my series of interviews with business referral partners. And today I'm going to be speaking with my dear friend and great supporter of my business, Murray Ansell of Life Energy Coaching. So without much ado, I just want to briefly just talk about how I have personally used Murray's expertise in coaching me through some personal and business challenges that I had, and I'm very grateful to you for that, Murray.
Very happy to do it.
So I wanted to bring Murray in early on in this interview series because he means what he's done for me and what I think he can do for you would be really valuable. So without much further ado, Murray, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into this and why you're so passionate about your business?
Absolutely. Well, the story starts about 14 years ago. I was at a different business, and I had a business relationship problem that just sort of erupted really, and went legal on me. And I really needed to resolve this because it was costing me a lot of money, and there was a huge reputational risk as well. So things started to happen that were unusual around this situation. And they started to do so after I recognized that this was actually the third time something like this had happened to me. And I took responsibility for somehow being the common factor here and maybe somehow attracting this situation, even though from the outside looking in it looked like a victim situation.
The crisis that you took responsibility.
Yeah, because I delivered what I said I would deliver, and yet this was happening. So certain things just sort of started to serendipitously unfold, and I found myself sort of going down the rabbit hole of how do we make things happen in our life? How do we create the experiences that we're experiencing? And specifically, how am I creating this experience, which consciously I don't want to experience, but it's there. And the common factor came down to energy. It's an energetic process. And this is like a research project that has been ongoing for the last 14 years. And it evolved into, firstly I found that by using a particular energetic technique that I was able to stop this legal situation in its tracks. I recognized that relationship energy is in the energy of both people. Everything about that relationship is in my energy. And so once I understood that, and I could sort of figure out what his feelings were around it, and his ideas were around it, I was able to transform that within my energy and basically take all of that emotional energy out, because that's the intensity. Okay. So we have ideas, we have thoughts, we have beliefs, but it's the emotion that gives them momentum. So if there's a lot of emotion around something, it will happen a lot more quickly.
Okay.
And that can be negative or that can be positive. So I thought, wow. So I was able to shift this situation through using this what I now would consider a pretty primitive tool. But I realized that this has amazing implications in life and in business. So if you can take us, because everything's about relationship in life. It's sort of about, and in business, And what I learned was that we were just carrying our relationship patterns from childhood and from earlier life into our business experiences. So if we've got a situation in our business that's not working for us, then we need to look at the energy and the belief patterns behind that. And when we understand that, and we take the energy out of that, and we see a sort of higher perspective on that situation, it transforms.
So just to frame this for the viewers, so you were in a crisis situation, and it happened 3 times previously or something like that, and you took responsibility for it. And then you were on the receiving end, but then you had some other experiences that led you to being a coach or understanding the coach's mentality, and then you were able to see that from the other perspective, and that led you into being a coach.
Yeah, it was something that I was just so excited about the potential of being able to take this relationship energy model that I just sort of kind of fallen upon out to the world that nothing was going to stop me. It turns out that this really is why I'm here. I'd not had any concept of that before this kind of crisis situation, and I think what I've noticed is that this happens a lot. People who make these major changes from something that seems so stable and so kind of good for them, and then they just leave it behind, and they go into something else that a lot of people would look at and say, "Whoa, what are you doing? Why are you doing this?" But they can't help themselves, because this is who they've come to be. This is really what their path is. And those experiences that they were having previously, they're not wasted. They were useful.
They're integrated into it.
My situation. I had a really good business background. I did investment banking and commercial banking and public accountancy, an international firm. Did this consulting thing that I was in when this happened. Really, really good business background.
Yeah.
So now, 14 years later, or a couple of years ago, I started to do this. I'm taking these techniques, which are very, very tried and tested and foolproof, and I'm bringing them for application in business situations. So I've got people who, clients who are looking to make a big impact in the world, doing a purpose-driven business, so something that's heart-centered. My techniques are perfect for those people.
I know that to be true for myself too.
Yeah.
And what I appreciate about you too is that you do have a really wide background in the business, finance, entrepreneurs, as in addition to the psychological and the spiritual realm. You've got it, and Shirley brings her own skills and talents to that as well. Can you, just in a nutshell, give us just some insight into some of the people you've worked with and the success that you've brought to them as a result of your coaching?
Well, let me give you an example. A client. This is quite a good example because they're so far away, and yet we can coach them.
Okay.
So I have a client in New Zealand, and he has a technology company. His technology is about helping to keep perishables in very good condition. New Zealand's a very agricultural, horticultural kind of country, or traditionally so, and so he's developed this new technology for allowing organic crops and high value, maybe pharmaceuticals or other things that would vaccines that would perish if they're not kept in just the right climate, the right temperature, the right environment. So anyone in a tech business, a tech startup, they're constantly raising money. In his situation, he had the added situation that his wife was kind of afraid of what he was doing. She would much rather have someone who was in a stable job, and yet this was his purpose. This was his passion. He couldn't do that.
Did they have a crisis of sorts that you helped them through?
Well, there was this constant, money raising thing. It would empty out. I actually came across him through a health problem that his wife had developed.
Okay.
But then it evolved, and I helped her out of that actually energetically, because what we found was that her thought patterns and the emotion around it was creating hurting her immune system, and if we just get those out of her system, she would recover, and she did. But then we got into the business stuff, and so whenever he would be needing to raise capital and finding it difficult, and they would be down to their last few bucks type of thing.
Feast or famine.
Yes, feast or famine.
Yeah.
He would get in touch with me, and I would work with him and find out, what's between where he is right now and where he wants to be.
Over the phone.
Over the phone.
Okay.
Because it's energy coaching, and energy coaching is not constrained by geography or even time. It's really interesting. So, it's simple as that. So I'm able to identify, it's an intuitive process, but I'm able to identify where those blocks and barriers are and bring them up. And basically when they're brought up, there's some sort of a lesson, there's some sort of wisdom around it that the person wasn't getting.
Okay.
So it's really a path of where their soul is taking them along this journey, this purposeful journey. Yet their mind is not up to speed with what they need to know to get to the next step.
Where did you bring him to?
Well, he's raised millions and millions of dollars through a number of different interventions that we've had. He's continuing to coach with us on with different things. He's opened up markets in different countries in the world. He's raised funding support from government as well as private sector. So there's a lot of success around that. There's other projects. There's property-related projects, for example, where people have been fighting with the lenders and they've come out on top with huge judgments.
Okay.
What else? There's so many different things. There's really no limitation on how this technique can be used because it's just energy and identifying what's the energy that's stopping the person getting where they need to be, and that can be in their personal life or in their business life. I love to apply in business.
Well, so just to sort of frame this issue with this guy, so he came to you with he was got feast or famine, and then you started working with him, and he was able to smooth out his production and see how he was creating that feast or famine process?
Absolutely. Well,
okay.
the interesting thing that I think about his situation was the impact of his marriage and of his relationship.
Okay.
And the dynamic, his belief patterns about marriage, which were introducing her fear into his energy.
I see.
So
Wow.
ideally,
Wow.
within relationships, we need to be loving of ourselves first, and not leaking our energy to others, or pulling their negativity into ourselves, our own energy profile, which then just stops us from doing anything that we want to be doing.
So you're doing marriage counseling, it sounds like, as well.
It's everything in life is relationships, Charlie. I mean, if we didn't have other people out there, it'd be a pretty boring life. It'd be like one person. But we teach each other and we learn from one another.
Yeah.
And it's not something to be. It's not about avoiding relationship. It's about learning from it. Because the more we learn from it, the higher we rise in what we're trying to do for ourselves and and in service to others.
Yeah.
And the more happy we are, basically.
Yeah. Well, let's tie this up here, and I wanted to ask you, Murray, how you have just recently created a new website. So why don't you tell us the best way for people to get a hold of you, and what that looks like, and how you can serve them.
Well, we have two websites. The main sort of foundation of our work is at Life Energy Coaching. So it's lifeenergycoaching.com.
Okay.
We have some really interesting and I think very exciting brand new tested but brand new technology really in energy transformation and personal transformation on there. We offer energy coaching on a customized basis, much the same as what we've just discussed in that example. But we also have some modular programs which are really, really powerful, and they cover things like loving yourself, getting into a great relationship with money, which is super important. For anyone who's in business, know yourself. So finding out about who you are, finding out about why you're here. So knowing your purpose, getting into alignment with very loving energy with business and your business specifically. And the last in that series of 6 programs is called Enlightened Wealth. So that's about helping people get out of scarcity consciousness. And to really get out of it, not just mentally but physically as well, so that they're not experiencing the feast and famine
Yeah.
type of situation that you referred to earlier.
Yeah.
So there's these programs. There's another program that's going to be up there shortly, which is called From Marriage to Spiritual Partnership.
Wow.
That is an exciting one because it's really about taking people out of what oftentimes is a codependent type of relationship, or it can be an independent relationship if the marriage isn't going that well and people are just going their own directions, or it can be a dependent relationship where someone is depending a lot on the other person, and that's difficult for the other person. So it's really about bringing both parties back to that place of self-love, knowing who they are, knowing what their purpose is, and really being, as opposed to depending on one another, being witnesses to each other's growth. And where it's enjoyable and useful to collaborate, in the different things, it's not like parenting, obviously you've got to collaborate.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's the program, modular programs, we've got the coaching, and we also have a program for people who want to do this type of work, which is a certification program in being a life energy coach. So that's all at www.lifeenergycoaching.com. And then there's the other website, which is businessenergycoaching.com.
Okay.
And I like to hang out on that side of the business a lot too. The products are really things that I've pulled together in life energy coaching. But in business energy coaching, this is really, both of these businesses are incubators for new programs, new energy transformation techniques, and opportunities for people. So more and more of my time is being focused in the business energy coaching side of things. So I do business energy coaching with people and take their certain situations in a business context, which often, almost always have some sort of a personal root to them anyway.
Sure.
And we play in there, and we transform those situations into things that are beyond what the client was expecting.
You've been busy, Murray. You've been very busy. I
It's
had
been a
no
lot of
idea.
fun. It's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, let's we'll close up here, and this is episode number 3 of the business interviews that I've been doing. Murray, thank you so much for coming in, and
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
you're welcome. All right. Charley Egan here, closing out. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.